Hello, how are you? Today I'm going to talk to you about the famous 24-hour water-only fast. A lot of people are talking about this extreme fasting technique on the internet, saying that it can eliminate inflammation, burn fat quickly, reset your hormones, detoxify the body. I'm going to tell you what science really says about this, the risks and the benefits of fasting when it's done safely, who absolutely should not do it, and what to eat after fasting to improve your results. You're going to love it. Stick around until the end. You won't want to miss it. Before we start, I want to ask you if you've ever done fasting at any point in your life. Was it on medical or nutritional advice, or did you do it on your own? How many hours have you managed to go without eating? I'd love to see your comment. Remember to like the video, it really helps me out. And also remember to share it with anyone you think could benefit. Let's spread this chain of kindness. This is what I want here on the channel. When I talk about fasting, I'm referring to water-only fasting because there are several different types of fasting, each with different durations. Lately, there's been a lot of talk about this 24-hour water-only fast. It's become a trend, a fad on the internet. And in fact, fasting can bring about some metabolic changes in our bodies. I'm going to start by telling you a bit about the changes that actually happen during fasting, and then we'll talk about precautions you should take. A lot of people also want to know, they ask me, if in order to get beneficial results regarding metabolism and energy, do we really need to do such an extreme fast? Because a 24-hour fast is very extreme. You would only have one meal a day. I'm also going to talk to you about that here in this video. This type of fast where you only drink water is called a water fast, not a dry fast. Dry fast is completely contraindicated. We need to stay hydrated throughout the day. So these fasts, the ones where you actually stay hydrated but cut out energy, nutrients, and food, right? And what determines the body's response? It's not just about not eating, it's mainly the drop in insulin, which is the change that happens, right? When you change the fuel your body uses, after a few hours without food, the body starts to alternate between three main sources of energy. The first is circulating glucose, meaning the blood sugar that was present from your previous meal. Glycogen, which is mainly the stored carbohydrate, comes from our liver. The liver releases it as the blood glucose level drops. And what everyone wants, body fat, because the body starts to release fatty acids and produces ketone bodies as an energy source. So this transition is what many people seek with fasting, to optimize fat burning. So let's quickly talk here in a simple way so you can understand what happens during each time period. Because fasting ends up having phases that researchers have already studied, right? From 0 to 4 hours after the last meal, that's the period we call postprandial. Your body doesn't even realize you're fasting yet because you ate not long ago. Insulin is higher because you had a meal before, so the body secretes insulin, mainly to cover the carbohydrates you consumed. The body basically uses glucose as energy and stores part of this excess as glycogen and fat. It's still in an anabolic phase, so to speak, because if you consumed a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of energy there, it's still storing instead of spending. If your meal was rich in refined carbohydrates, this phase can also come with more drowsiness, that anxious hunger, then that urge to eat, and even a craving for sweets. After you go through a period of 4 to 12 hours without eating, that's when the shift really begins because your insulin starts to drop. Glucagon rises, which is the hormone that unlocks your glucose stores, right? It ends up turning what's stored in your liver into glucose, so it can go into your bloodstream and keep your levels stable. And the liver starts to use that glycogen from the liver, like I told you, and from the muscles too, to keep the plasma glucose sources stable. Basically, the glycogen from the liver is what gets used the most. A lot of people wake up and say, I'm fine, I'm just a little hungry, but that's normal. But here something important happens. The hunger comes in waves. It doesn't just rise in a straight line. So this is an interesting point. Hunger becomes more manageable because it goes up and down, up and down. So in the end, it ends up reaching a plateau. You don't really feel much hungrier after this period because the body understands that things are more under control. This is fasting. It even includes the 12-hour fast. And since we already have this issue of insulin dropping, many people say that staying in this up to 12-hour fast is a more comfortable fast. And if you stop to think about it, it might even be physiological for many people. Because if you're someone who has dinner and then only has breakfast the next day, it's easy for you to reach this 12-hour fast. Let's suppose you had dinner at 8 o'clock at night. But if you're going to have breakfast at 8 in the morning, you end up doing this fast. It's like that fasting you do for a blood test. So it's not such a hard fast for you to do. Another interesting point about this fast, even a 12-hour fast, is that it provides what we call an intestinal pause or intestinal rest. That's when the intestine doesn't have to worry about digesting or absorbing nutrients, and it gets some time for itself. This can help a lot the intestinal health as well. Many researchers talk more about the benefits of intestinal rest. If you're constantly putting food in, the intestine will always need to metabolize and absorb it. After we enter the 12 to 24-hour phase, that's when the type of fasting people talk about a lot comes in, and the body ends up switching to a kind of smart energy-saving mode because the liver will, in quotes, empty its glycogen stores, and the body increases fat mobilization. And that's when the changes that many people notice in practice begin. You lose weight more quickly on the scale, keeping in mind that this weight isn't necessarily just fat, but can also be water because glycogen stores decrease, right? So when you lose glycogen, you lose water along with it, you deflate a lot, and you get that feeling of being leaner. But that does not necessarily mean you will have a significant fat loss in 24 hours. I'll tell you more about this later when we talk about post-fasting nutrition. There may be an acute drop in glucose, an improvement in some markers with some nuances for some people. There was a clinical trial in 2025 that evaluated acute responses to a 24-hour fast, and it observed that 24 hours after breaking the fast, there were no persistent effects on glucose and insulin. In other words, this effect may be temporary and will depend on the context of what happens afterward. Once again, fasting is not just about fasting itself. It's also about what you eat afterward, when you break the fast. This is a point that few people talk about, but it's very important. And we know that at this moment, that's when the production of ketone bodies actually increases. This transition is well described in the scientific literature on fasting, time-restricted eating, and as fasting progresses. There really is a gradual change in energy sources. So, many people already notice this issue of ketone bodies by the different breath, by the reduced appetite. When we have more ketosis, more ketone bodies, appetite decreases. The feeling of mental clarity can also come for some people. There are people who also experience side effects, right? Hunger, irritability, headache, because the body is in deprivation. So it can cause this irritability or dizziness when standing up. So it's very important to know that this more extreme fasting is not a type of fasting that just anyone will be able to handle and be able to work, live, and do their things. Especially if you've never fasted before, you should never start with a full day fast, a 24-hour fast. Always remember that you can start with 8 hours, 10 hours, or 12 hours, and you can see whether your body adapts or not. You're not going to just wake up one day and say, I watched the video, I'm going to do a 24-hour fast, because your body will probably feel these negative effects much more strongly. Some people also experience lower blood pressure because of fasting, because as I told you, the glycogen carries a lot of water with it when it's used up by the body, so the amount of fluid in the body can decrease, and as a result, blood pressure can also drop. Many people who are prone to having lower blood pressure may complain of dizziness, weakness, and so on, so this is also a very important point. If you are someone who has any kind of cardiovascular problem, any kind of metabolic issue, diabetes, or another health condition, if you are undergoing treatment for any disease, if you are pregnant, or if you are underage, do not do it. Do not fast without the supervision of a doctor and a nutritionist, because this could be dangerous for you. This video is for informational purposes only. In addition, there are issues related to inflammation and autophagy, which are closely linked to longer fasts. So, recent research suggests ways in which fasting can modulate inflammation through metabolism and immunity in our bodies. For example, there was a study published by University of Cambridge that discussed potential mechanisms linking fasting to protection against inflammatory processes, and there's also the issue of autophagy. We know that autophagy is a recycling process in our body when it clears out cells that are defective, so to speak. So, fasting tends to promote cellular signals linked to autophagy, mainly due to reduced nutrients and lower insulin levels. But the degree of autophagy and which tissue will be cleaned, we can't determine that very precisely. So, it can promote this process, but we also can't say that with a 24-hour fast, you're going to clean out all the cells in your body that aren't working properly. We have to be responsible in that regard. Now, what will you probably feel, and why are you going to experience these benefits with fasting? Why do so many people fast? It's not just because of the weight, since it can actually help with weight loss. If you significantly reduce your calorie intake on one day, even if you do this just once a week, cumulatively, you'll end up with a greater monthly calorie deficit than if you didn't fast. And that alone can promote weight loss. But it can also give you that feeling of a lighter stomach, of course. Less bloating, improved mental clarity because of ketones and catecholamines. Your sense of appetite control gets better. You're able to make better food choices. It can help you in that way, since you'll have that one meal. So, you plan better and organize things more effectively. On the other hand, some people, as I mentioned, may experience headaches, irritability. Their workout performance gets worse, they feel weaker, their blood pressure drops, and their blood sugar goes down. Some people may get constipated because they don't eat properly during the meal that breaks the fast. And even worse, if you already have any kind of eating compulsion, you shouldn't do fasting, because going many hours without eating can make it even harder to control yourself once you start eating again. So if you have any health condition like this, it's also not recommended. Besides talking about fasting, we also need to talk about what's even more important is to talk about post-fasting nutrition, when you break your fasting window. So remember that after so many hours without eating, your body needs protein, antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, fiber, and healthy fats. So don't think that just because you fasted for 24 hours, you have a free pass to break it with chocolate cake, pizza, and a big bowl of ice cream. Always remember that ideally, your meal should be well thought out and balanced, to provide you with all the nutrients you need, to give you satiety, to avoid big spikes in blood sugar, and to prevent gastrointestinal problems. Also, if you consume a lot of unhealthy fats and high glycemic index carbohydrates, it can even cause intestinal upset. So keep that in mind. If you can, have a nutritionist guide you on that day of your week if you choose to do the 24-hour fast. And also remember that it's a more extreme fast, so preferably you should get lab tests done beforehand, consult your doctor, seek guidance, and get your doctor's approval to do such an aggressive fast, a stronger one. Also remember that I have an entire playlist here on the channel talking about fasting, different types of fasting, how many hours of fasting for weight loss, how many hours of fasting for better health, the benefits, and who should not fast. Talking more about this meal, so this video doesn't get too heavy, I'll leave that playlist down below in the description for you. I want to know how many hours you've managed to go without eating, but still drinking water, and always remember that water is extremely important. Write to me down here in the comments. Leave a like on the video, it helps me a lot. Share it with someone who will enjoy it, with someone who needs it. Let's work together to expand this chain of kindness. That's what I want here with the channel. See you next time, bye.